Hello everybody, Evan Nathaniel Grimm here. Today I'm going to be discussing the Aries Full Moon happening on October 9th. Now before I begin, if you would like a reading with me, I only have 2 spots left for the entire year, so go check out my website to book that. I also have an introductory astrology course teaching you all the fundamentals of astrology, so please check that out. That's also in the link below. So for this full moon, as I'm talking today, track where 16 degrees of Aries is in your chart. That's where you're bringing something to a conclusion, to fruition, or where something is suddenly being illuminated in your life. Now, the full moon naturally occurs 2 weeks after the new moon, and we had a new moon on September 25th in Libra. And the theme which I described for that was new alliances, which I think was a pretty accurate description. So many people formed new sorts of relationships. This could have spanned romantic, just friendships, or even business partnerships. And those are very important. So the relationships you formed around September 25th are really a solution to some of the splintering that we've been seeing in relationships, because Mars Gemini has made us all very restless and impulsive and just throwing out information and provocational dialogue, which has in fact splintered many relationships. I'm sure there's many people watching who maybe have lost a significant friendship or relationship since August 20th. That's not an accident. That's because of Mars Gemini. It's just accelerated this pace of communication online and in person in somewhat of a damaging way at times. But anyways, so the Libra new moon, September 25th, was kind of a breath of fresh air. What is Libra about? Trust, cooperation, diplomacy. It's about, symmetry, harmony, balance, things like that. It's really about the other. So it's the consciousness of the other person. Aries on the other side is about the self, which is what this full moon is highlighting. So it's about you. It's your independence. It's your courage, your autonomy, your ability to assert yourself and act on things. So right now, the theme of this lunar cycle is the self and the other. So we're in a thematic cycle of the self versus the other. So that's the focus. And, in this full moon, it's conjunct to Chiron. And that is a little bit tricky because Chiron is a wound that we're healing from. It pertains to our vulnerabilities, our senses of rejection, but also eventually healing and self-love and self-acceptance. So that's why I've called this full moon, is it healing or is it rejection for you? So I think this full moon for different people, depending on your birth chart, it will actually highlight what step you're on in your healing journey. So for some people, this could be the beginning of a healing journey where you realize the ways in which you don't accept yourself or you don't feel loved in a relationship. For others, it's actually kind of like finishing sort of and completing a cycle of healing that you're on, where it's like maybe there's a new alliance from the Libra new moon that finally gives you permission to tend to your wounds. So the few different directions, and I'll kind of explain how you can navigate that. And at the end, I'm also going to explain how this affects each rising sign, this full moon. So stay tuned for that. So our relationships on this full moon form the lens through which we can see more clearly into our own wounds or sense of rejection. So if we give this a proper audit, it could actually be a major leap forward in our healing journey. However, if we put up defense mechanisms and walls, this could just further entangle us in our past challenges. So that's really what's at stake here. It's about how are you able to confront the dynamics of your relationships, and I mean personal, romantic, friendships, or otherwise. How do these relationships give us permission to express and explain our vulnerabilities? So do I give my partner an outlet to discuss their vulnerabilities, and vice versa? Do they give me space to talk about my vulnerabilities? So do you have space to talk about your past wounds? Is the relationship therapeutic for you? So my advice here is to use this time to lean into solid, stable relationships in which you feel comfortable and fully accepted, so that on the full moon conjunct Chiron, it actually gives you the space to, again, tend to those wounds and get closer to self-love and self-acceptance, because that's really what Chiron wants for you. It actually wants you to be acknowledging the areas of life in which you have faced vulnerability, but to overcome that and surmount that. Now, the full moon can be selfish, especially in Aries, impulsive. So what you don't want to be doing here, and what you might be witnessing, though, around you, is people making kind of regrettable actions where they're almost sabotaging a relationship to avoid rejection. That could be another manifestation of this full moon. And again, putting up defense mechanisms. So make sure that you've kind of like proactively addressed that in your partner. So it's like, does your partner put up those walls of defense when the conversation gets a little bit more emotional. You want to make sure that that's not happening, because that will prevent and actually form a blockage on this full moon where it's like it's almost stifled and stifling your healing journey. But for the healthy relationships in which you've given each other space to talk about your most tender feelings, then the full moon again is actually a catalyst for healing. So what is going on with the ruler of this full moon, Mars? Well, Mars is restless, it's disorganized, and it's somewhat conflict prone in Gemini. And it's squaring Neptune, meaning people are making sometimes misguided choices that could cause feelings of rejection in relationship contexts. However, it is forming a grand air trine with the Sun and Saturn, so in a professional context, you could still be efficient and good at managing situations, but again, interpersonal relationships, they could be a little bit prickly. Now, Mars is in Gemini squaring Neptune, so it's almost like kind of fanciful, whimsical, imaginative, and there's a lot of misguided choices. So again, like you won't don't be surprised if like some people are kind of around you making like choosing things where it's like nothing's really landing. It's like they're saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's like misconstrued dialogue and meanings, and it's all scrambled up. So I think that this is the trick here, is like the chart ruler is causing a little bit of confusion, and some of those misunderstandings could cause unnecessary feelings of rejection. Where it's like there's like people are really like not saying, like they're not meaning to say anything wrong, so like people might be making ambiguous statements. Like for example, like I'm kind of in a gray area right now, like with something, and it's like your partner, like you think it's about like love, and it's like, what do you mean, like you don't love me? But it's like they're actually just in a gray area in terms of like feeling, they're between good and great about something. So like my point here is that you want to ask people to clarify, repeat, and specify to avoid unnecessary rejection. So again, you want to focus on like legitimate long-term issues in your life and not use this full moon as a chance to like, or as an unfortunate opportunity to like basically just like chase these ghosts that aren't actually there. So it's like, don't like sabotage something that you already have. Like don't sabotage a good thing. So like that's the key here. So let's talk about how this will affect each rising sign. So for Aries Rising, this full moon is in your first house. So this is really something you're going to have to come to terms with in your, again, like self-acceptance is the key for you during this full moon. So I think for Aries Risings, you probably did stitch up or solidify one or two very close friendships or partnerships on the new moon. But now in this full moon, it's almost giving you that permission to overcome some of your own obstacles and get closer to self-acceptance. So I think for Aries Risings, it's like the most unavoidable. You have the most unavoidable full moon experience where it's like you're really stepping into and being consciously aware of how much further you have to heal, and you're being very vocal about that probably, and it's very visible to others. So it's almost like that's part of your expression during this time. It's almost like I am either defined or not defined by my deepest wounds. Now, if we keep going through, let's talk about Taurus risings. So if you're a Taurus rising, this full moon is really in your 12th house. So for Taurus risings, I kind of see this as more of like, how is spirituality or creativity or devotion healing for you? So if you devote yourself to source or creative muse or higher power, or you just like create or you dream up new possibilities in your life, then like maybe that's your source of healing. So I think that can actually be quite beautiful. It's very abstract though. So if you're a Taurus rising, you just kind of have to embrace the abstraction of what I just said. Spirituality, creativity, imagination. How can you kind of like transcend the boundaries of the 3D as part of your healing process? So next we have Gemini risings. So for Gemini risings, it's really the 11th house that's being activated. So the Aries energy for Gemini risings in the 11th house, like that is, that's really about communities, right? And friend groups. So if we're thinking about how do friend groups or communities help you heal, or maybe in a more literal sense, are you joining a community that is after sort of like promoting healing in some way? Maybe healing the earth, maybe healing through spirituality. So for Gemini risings, it's almost like, how can friend groups help nurture you? But then the Libra new moon was in your 5th house. So maybe it's actually something creative. So maybe you're bringing something creative from the 5th house into these groups in a way that's healing for all. So next we have Cancer risings. So now the Aries full moon's in your 10th house. That's a little bit of a tricky one. So the 10th house can be about almost like feeling a sense of like acceptance or rejection from like a higher up at work or even a parent. The 10th house can be the parents, a parents that you look up to. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cancer Risings do one of the following. Maybe they have a bit of a conflicted dialogue with a manager or with a parent, or a parent suddenly gives them some type of permission to heal something, or maybe they overcome a misunderstanding. Other Cancer Risings may just like have this illumination and realize that they actually want to incorporate their healing process into their career. So maybe they want to be a healer as part of their career. So that could actually be quite interesting. Now, in terms of Leo risings, this is activating your 9th house. So this is sort of an educational axis of the 3rd and 9th houses. So maybe there was a new relationship or a new alliance that you formed through just by messaging somebody online. And but in your higher educational world, in the 9th house, like maybe there is a moment here in which you want to teach about something in the healing arts, or maybe in your education, if you're in school right now, it's like maybe there is a difficult moment with a teacher or somebody who's like, maybe someone is like rejecting your worldview. Maybe someone's rejecting your worldview, or they're not letting you quite pass the exam yet. Like that could actually be part of the Leo rising experience. But also I think Leo risings could have a new perspective on healing, because the 9th house could just be like a new vista or lens through which you view the world. And I do think that for Leo risings, maybe it's even like a trip that you take. A trip that you take that like is kind of like nurturing you and saying like it's okay. Like maybe you go, you just like, there's a trip that just conjures something in your subconscious and says like, I think you're ready to take the next step in your healing journey. Next we have Virgo rising. So this is in the 8th house, which is a tricky one. I mean, because that can be about the subconscious, it could be about shared assets and finances. So I think for Virgo risings, there's an illumination about maybe your financial picture, or how maybe people have maybe been manipulating you, or even how someone is healing you through some type of merging experience, some type of bonding experience. Maybe there's a way in which you're coming together with somebody else in a relationship context that is like somehow triggering a transformation in you and like pulling something out of your subconscious that you've been hiding from and holding back, for maybe decades or years. But again, otherwise, it actually could be a bit of like a financial context in which you realize, okay, this person has like made me feel small financially, where it's like they just keep talking about all their trips to like Bali or something, and it's like making me feel rejected that way. So it's almost like you're coming to terms with like how what you value affects your sense of self and self-acceptance. So I think if you're a Virgo rising, or a Pisces rising for that matter, really invest in like your value systems. Like, what do you value? Are the people around you aligned with your value systems, so that you can avoid these like unnecessary feelings of rejection, where it's like, it's not actually my problem. It's like they just have like more materialistic values than me, and so it's like I shouldn't feel small because of my earnings and like playing these comparative games. So I actually think like for Virgo risings is a bit of a subconscious game here, but like you can really tap into that and make a lot of progress in both shadow work and healing. Now, next we have Libra risings. So this is in your 7th house, right? So this is actually like Aries risings. You're really clearly activating the self versus the other. So Libra risings, you've adopted a new, fresh kind of personality and persona, potentially during the new moon, a fresh look. And so the Aries full moon, I'm not going to lie, for some of you, it actually could be like a bit of a break, a splintering of a relationship. But for others, again, it could actually give you this permission of like, okay, I've embraced myself, my new identity, and now in my relationship, I'm seeing how that might manifest as me, again, getting closer to self-acceptance, but you're accepting yourself through that relationship. So it could actually be quite beautiful in that way. So think about, how does my new identity right now, like during Libra season, how does my new identity give me the strength and the resolve to kind of, patch up, again, these remaining residual wounds? But again, it's going to happen through the lens of a partnership. So my point here is that as a Libra rising, you shouldn't think about yourself as doing this healing in isolation. Like, you should actually be reaching out to others that are close to you. Again, are they giving you space to discuss your challenges? Next, we have Scorpio risings. It's in the 6th house. That could be something related to your routines, whether that's like your wellness routines or your regimen, your daily regimen. So maybe Scorpio risings are incorporating healing into their day-to-day a little bit more. They're balancing themselves out, and they're thinking about, because I mean, like Taurus risings, by the way, Taurus risings may have formed like new alliances at work. I think Scorpio risings almost maybe are finding a new balance in their spiritual dimension in the 12th house. So like the Libra new moon was in your 12th house. So it's like there was a behind the scenes transformation that you underwent that maybe a lot of people didn't see. It wasn't visible. But now it's like for the full moon in Aries, you're ready to incorporate that and demonstrate that in your day to day. So it's like I'm more balanced. I'm more in touch with my spiritual side or my creative side. So now I'm going to showcase that on this full moon and realize the ways in which I need to kind of like manifest that in my like 9 to 5. So it's like if I now value, which Libra can be about, it's like I'm valuing maybe a relationship to the divine or something creative. Now let's like try to insert that into my day to day. So maybe I have time for meditation. Maybe I have time to write songs. Maybe I have time to, set boundaries because Aries is about the self. So maybe I think I'm just kind of getting a download in the moment here. But like Scorpio Risings, I think this full moon is almost about asserting boundaries for yourself in your day to day work. So maybe there are people giving you too much responsibility. You have to say like, hang on, if you want me to be good at my job, you have to, pay homage to my needs for, self-love, self-development, and healing and like reflection. So Scorpio risings, set boundaries at work. Next we have Sag risings. This is in your 5th house. Perhaps a creative process, whether it's art, music, a play, a poem, like some type of art maybe could heal you, or like bringing out your inner joy. Like, it's almost like reclaiming this inner joy that maybe you had lost once. And so maybe that is part of your healing process. And I think that you have the support network to make that happen, by the way. So you formed a new alliance, probably in your community or friend group on the Libra new moon in the 11th house. But now in the 5th house, it's almost like maybe the collaboration in those groups is giving you this inspiration to create something out of your own joy, again, your own wellspring. And like that is your healing process. For others, though, it could actually be a first date. It could be a first date in which you feel a little bit rejected, or maybe it's a first date that gives you permission to heal somehow. It's like maybe I've moved on. Maybe you were in a breakup recently as a Sag rising, and you have a date in which it's like, I can now accept myself more. I can like really move on from that past relationship. But it could also be a date or an encounter or creation, even a creative project that gives you the fuel and motivation to continue healing. Like that could actually be another piece to that. Now we do have Cap risings. So this is in your 4th house. So how is your family a source of healing or rejection? So Capricorn risings, maybe it's coming to terms with addressing an old wound with the family, with one of the parents, and saying, hey, like I don't appreciate how you make me feel. So Capricorn risings could have some difficult conversations with their family, but this could also be just something related to the home. So it's like in your home, maybe you want to incorporate a healing modality into the home life. Again, kind of like Scorpio risings, like maybe it's part of your day-to-day all of a sudden. It's like you're just like working on yourself. You're doing a lot more self-work, so like TLC, self-love. Maybe that's the Aries full moon. But overall, I do think there's like a familial aspect to this. So Cap risings, it's like, what is your dynamic like right now with your family? Do you have a positive relationship with them, or is it strained right now? I think on the full moon, that will be illuminated in a new way. And I think that could really ripple out to all of your other relationships. Because I think like your relationship as a Cap rising right now with your family does have an impact on your relationship to everybody else. So if you're a Cap rising, like think about how can I address the base of the pyramid, basically, which is, the people who raised you or your family, and how can I like heal that and like create this because there's a symbiotic relationship between you and the parents karmically, but also as you heal those wounds with your parents, I do think that makes your other relationships easier. So that's the focus there. Aquarius risings, you have it in your 3rd house communication. So Aquarius risings, maybe this is about learning the dynamics and the know-how of a healing process. Maybe it's about communicating something over text or email. That's a little bit, maybe there's a little sense of rejection, like someone reaches out to you through text, or vice versa, you do that. So there could be a little bit of like a feeling of rejection, like through day-to-day communication. But I think overall the 3rd house is keen to learn. So I feel like maybe for Aquarius risings, it's actually more about, again, like learning the how and the what of like various healing journeys and thinking about that. So I think that in that way can have an educational lens to it, where it's almost like you want to get better and become a practitioner. We're just curious to learn more about how this healing process works. And it's also maybe an illumination of like how aware you already are of your healing journey. And then finally we have Pisces in the 2nd house. So this is also has a financial element to it, like Virgo risings. So maybe you actually value your healing process more than before, or you realize how a partner has left you feeling rejected, and that's caused you to maybe for Pisces, it's actually the ways in which you've almost like sacrificed some of your values to make a relationship work, and now it's illuminated like the ways in which you've compromised your values to make a relationship work, and you want to reclaim this and say, you know what, like I actually I actually value like you, like this relationship has like pushed me into this situation where like they make me value money or material too much, and like now I want to reclaim my other values, which is maybe spirituality or creativity or healing. But I think with Libra in the 8th house, there may have been a new relationship with somebody in a financial context, or maybe there was a new relationship with somebody who helps you tap into your subconscious. So through that, on the full moon, it's like illuminating your value system. So maybe now that I've subconsciously addressed, or I've addressed these things in my subconscious, now I'm more consciously valuing these other things, realigning my values, and then chasing the right relationships. So I think that's the rising sign breakdown. And the final thing I was going to say, this full moon on a global stage, I think it has some type of legal context with like the courts, because Venus in Libra, it could be women's issues, it could be something with Saturn and Aquarius, it could be related to technology, and what is the responsibility of technology platforms in addressing these difficult emotions with the full moon conjunct Chiron. Like how do people voice? How are people able to even voice or not voice their sort of like agitated emotions like online? So those types of cases could be taken up, and I think that with the and I think we're already, and by the way, I think we're kind of starting to see a little bit of snippets of that in the news, but I think that will be a theme around this time. Like there is some type of like legal dynamic here of like what is just and fair in terms of like addressing people's, how can people voice their opinions basically online. So I think that, and by the way, the eclipses are coming up. That'll be my next forecast for the next lunar cycle. So this lunar cycle overall is about the self versus the other. So again, it's about how these new alliances or existing relationships give you permission to heal, or how they kind of force you into a healing journey and realizing how much more work you have to do. But the next eclipse cycle is about value, financial. It's a financial reset maybe. It's about evaluating what you value, and maybe what you value in a relationship, but also your financial goals. So the Scorpio Taurus eclipses that are coming up, that's going to be like a total financial reset, I think, globally. But in the meantime, we do have this Aries Libra theme to work out first, which is, again, the self and the other. So again, if you want a reading from me, I think I have 2 slots left. Maybe by the time this video is over, I'll have none. I don't know. But like, I only have 2 more reading slots open, appointments. And my 2023 schedule is still TBD. I don't know how much availability I will have next year. So, because I'm focusing on educational content more. But if you want a reading from me guaranteed, then go book that. And also, again, consider signing up for my introductory astrology course, because I teach all the fundamentals of astrology. I make it very easy to understand. So again, thank you for watching this video, and take care.